In April 1865, the American Civil War was finally over. The bloodiest chapter in the nation's history had closed, and Abraham Lincoln carried the invisible scars of a war that had aged him decades in just 4 years. He had saved the Union, but his true mission, the reconstruction of a broken society and the healing of a fractured people, was just beginning. On the night of April 14th, looking for a rare moment of relief, Lincoln walked into Ford's Theater. He didn't know that the peace he had just won was about to be shattered by a single ounce of lead. The atmosphere inside the theater was light, filled with laughter from the comedy on stage. But in the shadows of the presidential box, a different script was being written. John Wilkes Booth, a famous actor and a fanatical Confederate sympathizer, was moving through the corridors. Booth did not see Lincoln as a president. He saw him as a tyrant who had destroyed the South. Armed with a single-shot Derringer pistol and a hunting knife, Booth waited for the play's loudest laugh, using the joy of the crowd to mask the sound of his approach. The shot was fired at point-blank range, striking Lincoln behind the left ear. In an instant, the laughter in the theater died, replaced by confusion and horror as Booth leaped from the presidential box onto the stage, shouting, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. To the audience, it briefly looked like part of the performance. But the reality was a devastating blow. The man who had steered the country through its darkest storm was now slumped in his chair, unconscious, breathing his final hours into the smoke of the theater. Lincoln was carried across the muddy street to a small boarding house placed diagonally on a bed that was too short for his tall frame. For long, agonizing hours, doctors, cabinet members, and his grieving wife sat in the dim light of the Peterson house, listening to the heavy, labored breathing of the dying president. There was no medicine that could save him. Outside, a nation that had celebrated the end of a war just days prior now waited in a silent, paralyzed state of shock. At 7:22 a.m. on April 15th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln breathed his last. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton looked at the silent president and uttered the words that would echo through history. Now he belongs to the ages. The news spread through the telegraph wires like a cold wave. The victory of the Union was suddenly stained with the bitter taste of mourning. The man who had broken the chains of slavery was gone, leaving behind a continent that was unified on maps, but deeply orphaned in spirit. The tragedy of Lincoln's end is not just how he died, but what died with him. His vision for a gentle, forgiving reconstruction of the South was replaced by bitterness, vengeance, and decades of racial division. The bullet fired at Ford's Theater did more than kill a president. It altered the trajectory of American history forever. As we look at his monument today, we must remember that Lincoln didn't just witness the birth of a new America, he paid for it with his life.